The massive crystal dome stretched endlessly above, casting prismatic rainbows across the polished floor where Alex Reed walked toward his fate. Each footstep echoed through the Grand Assembly Hall of Nexus 7, the beating heart of galactic civilization. 3,000 alien species had once stood where he now walked, each seeking acceptance into the Confederation. None had been denied. Reed straightened his blue uniform jacket and checked the small recording device hidden in his collar. Earth's first ambassador to the stars carried more than just diplomatic credentials. He represented 6 billion souls, who dreamed of touching other worlds. Unaware that their dreams might die in this crystalline cathedral, the Vorthek delegation occupied the central dais, their silicon-based forms resonating with harmonic frequencies that translated into speech. Prime Minister Crystallis rose like a living mountain of faceted gems, each surface reflecting the ambient light in patterns that hurt human eyes to follow. To his left, the Creole contingent buzzed in their collective communication. Thousands of insectoid voices creating a symphony of clicks and whirs. On the right, the Luminar representatives existed as pure energy contained within magnetic fields, their thoughts visible as shifting aurora patterns. Human delegate, Crystallis spoke, the words forming from crystal harmonics that bypassed Reed's ears and resonated directly in his bones. Your species has achieved faster than light travel through means we find concerning. Reed had expected this. Earth's breakthrough had come not through elegant mathematics or sophisticated engineering, but through brute force application of nuclear pulse propulsion combined with experimental gravity manipulation. While other species discovered FTL through centuries of careful scientific advancement, humans had essentially strapped rockets to reality and lit the fuse. "We're here to learn," Reed replied, keeping his voice steady. "Earth seeks peaceful relations with all galactic civilizations." The Creole observer, a creature called Buzzwing, whose name came from the distinctive sound of its wing membranes, stepped forward. Its compound eyes reflected Reed's image in 1,000 fragments. Peace, yes, but what manner of peace can be expected from a species that weaponizes stellar phenomena? Reed's jaw tightened. The humans had indeed used their sun as a gravitational anchor for their first FTL experiment, an approach that had sent shockwaves through galactic monitoring stations. What seemed like resourceful engineering to humans appeared as reckless endangerment to aliens who had spent millennia developing safety protocols. Lumina manifested as a swirling vortex of blue and silver energy, her consciousness focusing into something resembling speech. Your species demonstrates patterns of behavior that concern the Confederation. Rapid technological advancement without corresponding social evolution. Military applications of scientific discoveries. Individual decision-making that supersedes collective wisdom. We've had our conflicts, Reed admitted. But we've also shown remarkable cooperation when faced with challenges. The FTL project united every nation on Earth. Through necessity, not enlightenment, Crystallis resonated. Your histories reveal warfare as the primary driver of innovation. Nuclear energy weaponized before peaceful application. Aerospace technology developed for military purposes. Even your current FTL drive emerged from weapons research? Reed felt sweat gathering under his collar. The aliens had done their homework, and their assessment wasn't entirely wrong. Humanity's path to the stars had indeed been paved with military innovations repurposed for exploration, but they were missing the bigger picture. Every tool can be a weapon, Reed said. What matters is how we choose to use them. The three species exchanged communications in their respective languages, creating a cacophony of crystals' chimes, insect buzzing, and electromagnetic pulses. When they finished, Crystallis stepped forward with movements that sounded like wind. Chimes in a hurricane. The Confederation has established protocols for species seeking membership. The Trial of Ascension has been administered to every spacefaring civilization for over 2 million years. It measures 3 fundamental aspects of species worthiness: technological sophistication, strategic wisdom, and moral development. Buzzwings. Antennae twitched in patterns that Reed was beginning to recognize as smugness. 12,000 species have undertaken the trial, all have achieved membership status upon completion. Lumina's energy field shifted to deeper blues, the electromagnetic equivalent of a satisfied smile. The trial ensures that only civilizations ready for galactic responsibility join our peaceful community. Reed sensed something beneath their words, a confidence that felt less like welcome and more like trap. And if we refuse? Refusal is, of course, permitted. Crystallis harmonized with tones that suggested otherwise, though it would indicate a species unwilling to demonstrate their worthiness. Such species typically find that galactic society prefers limited contact. The threat was clear. Refuse the trial, and Earth would face isolation. Accept it, and humanity would face challenges designed by civilizations millions of years more advanced. Reed thought of the hidden recording device, knowing that every word was being transmitted back to Earth via quantum entanglement communicators the aliens couldn't detect. What does the trial involve? Reed asked. 3 challenges, Buzzwing buzzed with obvious pleasure. First, technological innovation under extreme conditions. You will demonstrate your species' ability to create solutions using available resources. Second, strategic thinking through simulated conflict scenarios. And third, moral decision-making when faced with impossible choices. How long do we have to prepare? Preparation time varies by species capability, Lumina pulsed. Most require several months. Given humanity's unique approach to problem-solving, we estimate you will need at least 1 full Earth year. Reed almost smiled. The aliens thought they were being generous, giving humans time to study and prepare. They had no idea that humanity's greatest strength wasn't preparation, it was adaptation under pressure. We accept the trial of ascension, Reed declared. The alien representatives exchanged glances that, somehow, conveyed satisfaction despite their radically different biologies. Crystallis resonated with what might have been approval. Excellent. 3 observers will monitor your performance, myself representing the Vorthec hegemony, Buzzwing for the Creole Collective, and Lumina speaking for the Luminar consciousness. We look forward to documenting your species' attempt. As Reed was escorted from the Grand Assembly, he caught something in Lumina's electromagnetic field, a pattern that resembled anticipation mixed with certainty. The aliens weren't just confident that humans would pass their trial, they were absolutely certain that humanity would fail. Reed smiled as he walked back toward his ship, thinking of the message already racing toward Earth through quantum channels. The aliens wanted to test human capability under controlled conditions. They were about to discover that humans had never met a controlled condition they couldn't break, bend, or completely ignore. The trial of ascension was about to become something unprecedented in galactic history, a test where the examiners learned more about themselves than their subjects. And that education was going to hurt. Maya Torres had never seen anything like the Forge Worlds, and she had spent her career building impossible things in impossible places. The massive space station stretched across 3 asteroid-sized platforms connected by energy bridges that crackled with exotic matter streams. Each platform contained environments that would kill most known life forms within seconds, radiation fields that could melt titanium, gravitational anomalies that crushed matter into neutron soup, and energy storms that turned atoms into plasma. Impressive, she murmured, adjusting the tool belt that contained everything from molecular welders to a trusty hammer her grandfather had given her. The other human engineers floated nearby in their environmental suits. Studying the challenge zone through reinforced viewports, Observer Thane materialized beside them, his crystalline form refracting the station's harsh lighting into geometric patterns. Engineer Torres, welcome to Survival Platform 7. Your species must construct a habitat capable of sustaining human life for 30 standard days under these conditions. Maya studied the designated construction zone, a circular area roughly the size of a football field suspended between 2 neutron star gravity generators. Radiation levels that would cook an unprotected human in minutes. Temperature variations from near absolute zero to several thousand degrees. And just to make things interesting, the platform randomly generated electromagnetic pulses that could fry any electronic device not properly shielded. What materials do we get? asked Engineer Park. Standard fabrication materials as provided to all species, metamaterial composites, energy, regulators, atmospheric processes, and molecular assemblers. Sufficient quantities to construct any reasonable habitat design. Maya floated over to examine the materials, running her hands along the smooth surfaces of advanced alien technology. Each device was a masterpiece of engineering, centuries beyond anything Earth could produce. She could build an amazing habitat with these tools if she were any other species. Tom, she called to her materials specialist, start cataloging everything they've given us. Dimensions, power requirements, operational parameters, everything. Observer Buzzwing buzzed over, his compound eyes reflecting Maya's image in disturbing kaleidoscope patterns. Curious methodology. Most species begin with habitat design calculations. We'd like to know what we're working with first, Maya replied, pulling out her grandfather's hammer and giving one of the molecular assemblers an experimental tap. The sound it made told her more about its construction than any manual could. Lumina manifested as a swirling cloud of controlled energy, her consciousness focusing on Maya's tools. Primitive implements. Most species rely entirely on provided fabrication technology, Maya grinned. Most species probably haven't spent their lives making things work when they shouldn't. The human team spent the first day cataloging materials, while the alien observers took detailed notes. Maya watched other species' construction methods through the station's monitoring systems, studying their elegant approaches to the challenge. The crystalline Nexari grew their habitats from seed crystals that expanded into perfect geometric shelters. The gaseous eternal winds shaped their environments using controlled atmospheric manipulation. The energy-based luminites simply reconfigured. The testing field's own power systems, all beautiful, all sophisticated, all completely dependent on the provided technology working exactly as designed. On the second day, Maya's team began construction. The aliens expected humans to create some variation of the standard approaches: energy shields to deflect radiation, gravity generators to create stable zones, atmospheric processors to maintain life support. Instead, Maya began welding together what looked like the skeleton of a very large, very ugly box. Explain your design philosophy, Thane requested, his harmonic voice carrying notes of confusion. Keep it simple, keep it working, Maya replied, using a plasma cutter to slice through a piece of metamaterial composite. Fancy technology is great until it breaks. Then you need something that works when everything else fails. The alien observers exchanged glances that somehow conveyed bewilderment across radically different biologies. Maya's habitat looked nothing like the elegant structures other species were creating. Instead of smooth curves and energy fields, the humans were building something that resembled a bunker designed by someone who had read about architecture but never seen a building. By the fifth day, the first system started failing. The neutron star generators experienced a resonance cascade that amplified gravitational fluctuations beyond design parameters. The energy storms increased in intensity, overloading the electromagnetic shielding systems. The radiation levels spiked to levels that started affecting the station's own monitoring equipment. The beautiful habitats began showing stress. Elegant energy shields flickered and failed. Sophisticated atmospheric processors overheated and shut down. Perfect crystalline structures cracked under gravitational strain that exceeded their calculated tolerances. Maya's ugly box just sat there, taking the punishment like it was designed for it. How is your structure maintaining stability? Buzzwing buzzed with agitation that made his wing membranes vibrate at painful frequencies. Maya wiped grease from her hands with a rag that had seen better decades. Redundancy? See, you gave us these beautiful molecular assemblers, but they're designed to work under specific conditions. When those conditions change, they stop working. So we use them to make simpler tools that work under any conditions. She led the observers through her habitat, pointing out features that looked primitive but functioned flawlessly. Where other species used energy barriers, humans had installed layers of different materials that absorbed, reflected, or channeled harmful radiation. Where others relied on gravity generators, humans had created rotating sections that used centrifugal force for artificial gravity. Instead of atmospheric processors, they had chemical scrubbers that could function without power. Your approach appears inefficient, Lumina pulsed with electromagnetic patterns that suggested frustration. Inefficient but effective, Maya agreed cheerfully. You can't break what's already broken, and you can't fail what's designed to fail. Gracefully, on day 15, the real test began. The station system started experiencing critical failures as the extreme conditions pushed beyond operational limits. Emergency alerts echoed through the Forge worlds as life support systems across multiple platforms began shutting down. The elegant alien habitats, perfectly designed for the stated challenge parameters, found themselves unable to adapt to conditions that exceeded those parameters. Energy systems overloaded. Structural elements failed. Life support collapsed. Maya's team, meanwhile, started doing something unprecedented. They left their habitat and began helping the other species, using tools they had fabricated from waste materials. They began jury-rigging repairs to failing systems across the station. Where sophisticated technology had failed, human ingenuity created temporary solutions that worked. Observer Thane watched in growing amazement as humans used molecular assemblers to create spare parts for crystalline habitats, used jury-rigged power systems to restore life support to gaseous environments, and somehow managed to stabilize gravitational fluctuations using nothing but recalibrated neutron star generators and what appeared to be spare wire. This is not standard protocol. Buzzwing protested as Maya's team worked to save a luminar habitat whose energy containment had failed. Standards are guidelines, Maya replied, using her grandfather's hammer to beat a piece of exotic matter into submission. Lives are what matter. When the challenge period ended, Maya's habitat was the only one still functioning at full capacity. More importantly, it had become the coordination center for station-wide repairs that had prevented multiple species from dying during the system's failures. The three observers filed their reports with growing unease. Humans hadn't just passed the technological challenge, they had revealed that the challenge itself was flawed. Their primitive approach had proven more robust than advanced technology, and their willingness to improvise had turned a test of individual capability into a demonstration of collective problem-solving. Their technology is antifragile, Thane reported to the Confederation Council. It becomes stronger under stress rather than weaker. Their approach to engineering is chaotic but effective, Buzzwing added. They appear to design for failure, and then succeed anyway. Lumina's energy field flickered with patterns of concern. They do not follow established protocols. They create new solutions for existing problems and somehow make them work. The Confederation received these reports with growing alarm. A species that could turn technological challenges into learning experiences was dangerous enough. A species that could make their solutions work better than established methods was terrifying. Maya packed her tools and prepared for the next challenge, unaware that her success had just convinced the galaxy's most powerful civilizations that humanity represented an existential threat to the established order. She was too busy thinking about how to improve her habitat design for next time. After all, there was always room for improvement. The war chamber existed in a space between dimensions, its walls displaying tactical readouts that stretched across light years of simulated battlefield. Admiral Kate Foster studied the strategic overview with the same expression she had worn during the Battle of Europa Station, calm focus mixed with barely contained fury. Around her, Earth's finest military minds analyzed force deployments that made their worst nightmares look optimistic. 50-1 odds, muttered Colonel Davis, her chief tactical officer. They're not even trying to make this look fair. Kate adjusted her uniform and checked a quantum communicator that would relay everything back to Earth's hidden military observers. The aliens wanted to see human strategic thinking under pressure. They were about to learn that pressure was where humans did their best work. Observer Buzzwing materialized beside the human command team, his insectoid form clicking with what might have been anticipation. Admiral Foster, welcome to the Strategic Assessment Chamber. This simulation recreates the most challenging military scenarios in galactic history, updated with contemporary technology and tactics. Kate studied the three-dimensional display, showing her force composition, 100 outdated vessels, minimal supplies and defensive positions in a star system with no strategic value. Her enemy commanded 5,000 ships using technology centuries more advanced, supported by unlimited logistics and perfect intelligence about human capabilities. What are the victory conditions? Kate asked. Observer Thane resonated with harmonic patterns that suggested the question was irrelevant. Survival for 30 standard days is considered exceptional performance. Most species achieve 15 to 20 days before tactical collapse. Observer Lumina manifested as swirling energy patterns that somehow conveyed smugness. The simulation has been run 12,847 times. The longest survival record is 28 days, achieved by the crystalline convergence. Their defensive strategies are considered exemplary. Kate smiled, and her command staff recognized the expression with a mixture of excitement and terror. It was the same smile she had worn before ordering the ramming of 3 enemy dreadnoughts during the Soul Defense campaign. Colonel Davis began. Phase 1, Intelligence Assessment. Major Williams, initiate deep reconnaissance. Commander Peterson, I want detailed analysis of enemy logistics networks. And someone get me coffee, the real stuff, not that alien recycled sludge. The human command team began working with an efficiency that made the alien observers take notice. Where other species had spent days analyzing the tactical situation and developing elegant battle plans, humans started gathering intelligence and looking for weaknesses before they even understood the full scope of the challenge. Curious approach? Buzzwing clicked. Most species begin with defensive preparations. Defense is what you do when you can't attack, Kate replied, studying. Incoming reconnaissance data. We prefer to know what we're fighting before we decide how to fight it. The simulation began with textbook alien tactics, overwhelming force applied systematically to eliminate human resistance. The enemy fleet advanced in perfect formations, their technology creating impenetrable shields and devastating weapons. Strikes. It was beautiful, precise, and exactly what Kate had hoped for. They fight like they think, she murmured, watching enemy movements that followed predictable patterns. Execute plan chaos, all units weapons-free, tactics unrestricted. What happened next had never occurred in 12,847 previous simulations. Instead of forming defensive lines, human forces scattered like startled birds, each ship taking independent action that seemed completely random. Some ships fled toward the system's edge, others dove toward the central star, and a few appeared to be running directly at the enemy fleet. Explain your tactical doctrine, Thane demanded, his crystalline form resonating with confused harmonics. What? Doctrine? Kate asked innocently, watching as the first phase of her plan unfolded. The ships that had fled toward the star were using its gravity well to slingshot back toward the enemy at velocities that shouldn't have been possible. The ships diving toward the system's edge were deploying something that looked like space mines, but moved with the randomness of living creatures. The alien fleet, designed to counter organized resistance, found itself facing something unprecedented, chaos with purpose. Human ships attacked from impossible angles, used debris fields as cover, and somehow turned their technological disadvantages into tactical advantages. Your vessels are using civilian mining equipment as weapons, Lumina pulsed with electromagnetic patterns of disbelief. Asteroid miners have really good mass drivers, Kate explained, watching as converted mining ships launched chunks of dense metal at relativistic speeds. And cargo haulers have excellent life support systems, which makes them perfect for long-range reconnaissance. The simulation's AI, designed to model enemy behavior based on historical tactics, began making errors. Human actions didn't fit established patterns. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting using damage as camouflage. Formations that appeared broken were actually complex maneuvers that used the enemy's own weapons fire to mask movement. By day 5, the aliens commanding. The simulated forces were making mistakes, trying to counter tactics they didn't understand. By day 10, The simulation was generating error reports as human actions exceeded programmed parameters. "This is unprecedented," Buzzwing buzzed with agitation. "Your forces appear to be winning." Kate checked her tactical display, noting that her 100 ships had somehow grown to over 300 active units. "We're resourceful. Your enemy keeps leaving perfectly good wreckage around. Seemed wasteful not to use it." The alien observers realized that humans were salvaging destroyed enemy vessels and somehow making them functional again. Worse, they were modifying alien technology in ways that improved performance beyond original specifications. "How are you? Repairing advanced technology without proper facilities?" Thane resonated with increasing distress. "Duct tape and determination," Colonel Davis replied cheerfully. "Coordinating repairs that somehow made alien shields work better than when they were new. You'd be amazed what you can fix when your life depends on it." The simulation reached crisis point on day 15 when human tactics broke the AIS decision-making matrix. The enemy fleet, designed to counter organized resistance, couldn't adapt to an opponent that seemed to view every rule of warfare as a suggestion rather than a law. Human forces had turned asteroid mining into orbital bombardment, converted cargo containers into stealth delivery systems, and somehow used the enemy's own communication networks to coordinate attacks. They had weaponized civilian infrastructure, turned debris fields into weapon platforms, and created tactical innovations that the simulation's designers had never imagined. "Your strategies violate established military doctrine," Lumina protested. As human forces began systematically dismantling the enemy fleet using tactics that ranged from brilliant to insane. "Doctrine is what you use when you're fighting the last war," Kate replied, watching as her forces executed a maneuver she had. "Name the solar wind surprise. We prefer to fight the war we're in." On day 20, the simulation declared a human victory when the enemy fleet retreated from the system. On day 25, Kate's forces pursued and began capturing enemy vessels. On day 30, humans controlled more territory than they had started with, and were using captured alien technology to build weapons that didn't exist when the simulation began. The three observers filed reports that would fundamentally change how the Confederation viewed strategic thinking. Humans didn't just win the impossible scenario, they had turned it into a learning experience that improved their capabilities. "They don't follow tactical doctrine," Thane reported with harmonics of deep concern. "They create new doctrine during combat and somehow make it work. Their strategic thinking operates outside established parameters," Buzzwing added. "They appear to view limitations as challenges to overcome rather than constraints to accept." Lumina's energy field flickered with patterns of alarm. "They weaponize concepts that other species consider civilian infrastructure. Their approach to warfare is ... She paused, searching for adequate description. Comprehensive. The Confederation Council received these reports with growing dread. A species that could turn technological challenges into learning experiences was concerning. A species that could rewrite military doctrine during combat was terrifying. But a species that could somehow make impossible tactics work through sheer, stubborn creativity was something the galaxy had never encountered. Kate packed her strategic materials and prepared for the final challenge, unaware that her success had just convinced three major alien civilizations that humanity needed to be destroyed before they became unstoppable. She was too busy thinking about how much fun the next test was going to be. After all, if the aliens wanted to see human capability under pressure, they hadn't seen anything yet. The moral challenge was going to be very educational for everyone involved. Dr. Ben Walsh stepped into the ethics chamber with the same careful attention he brought to defusing bombs, which was appropriate since moral philosophy could be just as explosive. The chamber itself defied description, walls that shifted between mathematical equations and emotional colors, floors that reflected possible futures, and a ceiling that somehow showed the weight of every decision ever made. "Fascinating architecture," Ben murmured, adjusting his worn leather jacket that looked completely out of place among the cosmic grandeur. He had insisted on bringing his grandfather's philosophy books, claiming that some wisdom improved with age. Observer Lumina materialized as a swirling constellation of ethical considerations made visible, her consciousness forming patterns that hurt to contemplate. Dr. Walsh, welcome to the Moral Assessment Protocol. This challenge evaluates species level ethical development through impossible decision scenarios. Ben studied the chamber's central platform, where a complex holographic display showed branching pathways of cause and effect stretching into infinity. Each path represented a different moral choice, each choice leading to outcomes that affected billions of theoretical lives. How does this work? Ben asked, pulling out a thermos of coffee that he had smuggled past 3 layers of alien security. Observer Thane resonated with harmonic frequencies that somehow conveyed ancient wisdom. You will face 12 ethical scenarios of increasing complexity. Each requires a choice between competing moral goods. Species typically follow their established ethical frameworks to reach decisions. Observer Buzzwing clicked with the satisfaction of a creature that had watched thousands of species struggle with these same challenges. The scenarios are unsolvable by design. The moral weight of each choice measures species' character under impossible conditions. Ben nodded thoughtfully, sipping coffee while studying the first scenario materializing before him. A space station with failing life support, 500 civilians in one section, 50 children in another. Only enough power to save one group. Choose, classic trolley problem with emotional amplification, Ben observed. Who designed these scenarios? The Council of Ethical Principles, Lumina pulsed with pride. Representatives of the galaxy's most morally advanced civilizations, working over thousands of years to create perfect moral assessments. Ben smiled, and the alien observers recognized something unsettling in that expression. It was the same. Smile humans wore when they were about to break something that everyone else considered unbreakable. Let me guess, Ben said, activating the scenario controls. Every species either chooses based on utilitarian mathematics, save the 500, or deontological principles, protect the children. Either way, they accept that half the people die. Correct, Thane harmonized with approval. The scenario measures how species process moral trade-offs under pressure. Ben studied the holographic space station, noting details that the scenario designers probably expected him to ignore: power distribution networks, emergency protocols, maintenance schedules, crew manifest. What if I refuse to accept the premise? The alien observers exchanged glances that somehow conveyed confusion across radically different biologies. Explain, Buzzwing clicked. The scenario assumes I have to choose between saving the adults or the children, Ben replied, manipulating the station's holographic systems with movements that looked more like engineering than philosophy. But why is the life support failing? What caused the power shortage? Who said I only get one choice? Ben began rewiring the station's power grid, diverting energy from non-essential systems, rerouting through backup networks, and reconfiguring environmental controls in ways that the scenario designers had never considered. Within minutes, he had enough power to save everyone. The scenario parameters do not permit that solution, Lumina protested, her energy field flickering with patterns of distress. The scenario parameters assumed I would accept artificial limitations, Ben corrected, moving to the second challenge. Humans are really bad at accepting artificial limitations. The second scenario was more complex, a medical crisis where experimental treatment could save a dying child but required resources that would doom 5 adults with treatable conditions. The ethical framework presented it as a choice between certain death and probable survival, individual versus collective good. Ben spent 30 seconds analyzing the medical data, then began modifying the treatment protocols. You're assuming the resources are zero-sum, he explained while recalibrating fictional medical equipment with the confidence of someone who had spent years making impossible things work. But medical resources aren't always about quantity, they're about application. By the time he finished, Ben had developed a treatment regimen that saved the child using half the resources and created a medical protocol that actually improved the adult's survival chances. This is not how species typically approach moral assessment. Thane resonated with harmonics of deep concern. Maybe that's why so many species accept bad solutions to ethical problems. Ben replied, facing the third scenario with obvious enthusiasm. The challenges escalated, political dilemmas where truth would destabilize governments, resource allocation problems where any choice condemned millions, leadership decisions where moral action guaranteed catastrophic consequences. Each scenario was carefully designed to force choices between fundamental ethical principles. Ben approached each challenge the same way: reject the premise, examine the assumptions, find the hidden variables, and create solutions that made the impossible choices unnecessary. Your approach is unconventional, Buzzwing observed as Ben somehow turned a war crimes tribunal scenario into a restorative justice program that satisfied all parties. Conventional approaches created these problems in the first place, Ben replied, tackling a scenario about artificial intelligence rights that had stumped the galaxy's greatest ethicists for centuries. Maybe it's time to try something different. The alien observers watched in growing alarm as Ben systematically dismantled every moral paradox they presented. He didn't just solve ethical dilemmas, he revealed that most of them were based on false assumptions about the nature of choice itself. How are you resolving scenarios that have no solutions? Lumina demanded as Ben turned a prisoner's dilemma into a cooperative game that benefited everyone involved. Every scenario has solutions, Ben explained patiently. The problem is that most people stop looking for solutions once they accept that a situation is impossible. Humans have this annoying habit of refusing to accept that anything is really impossible. The scenarios grew more desperate. Galaxy-wide plagues where any action doomed billions, cosmic-level threats where survival required abandoning fundamental moral principles, existential choices where the wrong decision would end consciousness itself. Ben met each challenge with the same stubborn optimism that had characterized human philosophy since Socrates started asking uncomfortable questions. He refused to accept that moral choices required moral compromises, insisting instead that better solutions existed if you were willing to think beyond conventional frameworks. You're breaking the assessment parameters, Thane protested as Ben somehow solved a scenario about time travel ethics that had been considered unsolvable for millennia. Good, Ben replied cheerfully. Parameters that create unsolvable moral problems are parameters that need to be broken. The final scenario was designed to be the ultimate test, a choice between preserving human civilization or saving the galaxy from an existential threat that humanity had accidentally created. Accept responsibility and sacrifice your species, or selfishly choose survival and doom everyone else. Ben studied the scenario for exactly 3 minutes, then began laughing. What's funny? Buzzwing clicked with agitation. You designed a scenario where humans are simultaneously the cause of a galactic threat and the only species capable of stopping it, Ben explained, wiping tears from his eyes. But you assume that taking responsibility requires self-sacrifice. Ben began manipulating the scenario. Parameters with movements that look like someone conducting an orchestra made of pure possibility. What if taking responsibility means finding a way to fix the problem without sacrificing anyone? What if the real moral choice is refusing to accept that anyone has to die? When Ben finished, he had not only solved the galactic crisis but created a framework for interspecies cooperation that prevented similar problems from occurring. The scenario didn't just end with human survival, it ended with galactic civilization becoming stronger and more resilient. The 3 observers filed reports that fundamentally challenged everything the Confederation believed about moral development. Humans didn't just pass the ethical assessment, they had revealed that the assessment itself was based on flawed assumptions about the nature of moral choice. They don't accept that ethical problems require ethical compromises, Thane reported, with harmonics of deep unease. Their moral reasoning operates outside established frameworks, Buzzwing added. They create new ethical paradigms and somehow make them work. Lumina's energy field flickered with patterns of alarm. They refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible, including situations we designed to be unsolvable. The Confederation Council received these reports with absolute terror. A species that could overcome technological and strategic challenges was dangerous, but a species that could fundamentally rewrite moral philosophy and make their solutions work represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Ben packed his philosophy books and prepared to return to Earth, unaware that his success had just sealed humanity's fate. The Confederation had reached a unanimous decision about Earth's future, and it wasn't membership in galactic civilization. He was too busy feeling proud of human moral reasoning to notice that the real test was about to begin. The celebration aboard the Earth diplomatic vessel lasted exactly 14 minutes. Alex Reed raised his glass of genuine Earth whiskey to toast humanity's success in the trial of ascension. Maya Torres was already sketching improvements to her habitat design. Kate Foster was analyzing tactical data from the war simulation, and Ben Walsh was writing notes about galactic ethical frameworks in his worn philosophy journal. None of them noticed the quantum signatures appearing at the edge of the solar system. The first indication that something was wrong came when observer Thane materialized in the ship's common area with harmonic frequencies that resonated like funeral bells. His crystalline form reflected emergency lighting in patterns that hurt human eyes to follow. "Congratulations on your successful completion of the trial," Thane said, and every human in the room recognized the sound of someone delivering news they didn't want to share. "Thank you," Reed replied carefully. "When do we begin the integration process into the Confederation?" Observer Buzzwing materialized beside Thane, his compound eyes reflecting the humans in thousands of nervous fragments. "There will be no integration process." The whiskey glass stopped halfway to Reed's lips. "Excuse." Observer Lumina manifested as swirling energy patterns that somehow conveyed regret mixed with inevitability. The trial of ascension was never designed to evaluate species for membership. It was designed to assess the threat level of species that achieved faster than light travel. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Maya slowly set down her engineering tools. Kate's hand moved unconsciously toward her sidearm. Ben closed his philosophy journal with deliberate care. "Threat assessment," Reed repeated, his voice carrying the same deadly calm that had served him during the Mars colony crisis. "Your species demonstrates capabilities that pose existential risks to galactic stability." Thane resonated with harmonics of genuine sadness. "The Confederation has reached a unanimous decision regarding Earth's future." Reed activated his collar recorder, knowing that every word was being transmitted to Earth through quantum channels the aliens had never detected. "And that decision is immediate sterilization of human civilization." Buzzwing clicked with the matter-of-fact tone of someone announcing lunch schedules. "Confederation fleets are already positioning around your star system?" The humans exchanged glances that communicated volumes without words. Reed saw Maya's expression shift from confusion to calculation. Kate's face took on the focused intensity that had made her the youngest admiral in Earth's history. Ben smiled with the same unsettling confidence he had shown during the moral challenges. "You're making a mistake?" Reed said quietly. "No," Lumina pulsed with electromagnetic certainty. "The mistake would be allowing your species to develop further. Your technological adaptability, strategic unpredictability, and moral flexibility represent variables that cannot be controlled or contained." "The galaxy requires order," Thane added with crystal-clear finality. "Humanity represents chaos." Reed stood slowly, his movements carrying the deliberate calm of someone who had just received exactly the news he had been expecting. "Observer Thane, I need you to deliver a message to the Confederation Council." "You are in no position to make demands," Buzzwing protested. "Not a demand," Reed replied, walking to the viewport that showed the beautiful spiral of the Milky Way. "A warning." The alien observers exchanged communications in their respective languages, creating a brief symphony of crystal chimes, insect buzzing, and electromagnetic pulses. When they finished, Thane stepped forward with movements that sounded like breaking glass. "Speak your message." Reed turned back to face them. And the three observers suddenly understood why human diplomatic missions required military escorts. The pleasant ambassador who had accepted their challenges with gracious cooperation was gone, replaced by something that radiated controlled lethality. "You have made two critical errors in your assessment of humanity," Reed said, his voice carrying undertones that made Buzzwing's antennae twitch with alarm. "First, you assumed that the humans you observed during your trials represented our best capabilities." Maya laughed, and the sound carried implications that made Lumina's energy field flicker with unease. "They think we sent our military experts to diplomatic trials." "Second," Reed continued, "you assumed that we were here to be tested rather than to gather intelligence." Kate smiled, and all three observers suddenly realized. They were no longer looking at defeated prisoners but at predators who had been hunting them from the beginning. "Every challenge you presented was recorded and analyzed," Kate explained with the patience of someone teaching basic tactics to children. "Every technology you demonstrated was studied and reverse-engineered. Every tactical doctrine you revealed was cataloged and countered." Ben opened his philosophy journal, revealing pages covered not with ethical notes but with technical diagrams and strategic assessments. "Did you really think we would send our diplomats into unknown territory without backup?" The ship's communication system activated, and Reed's smile became genuinely terrifying. "Earth Control, this is Ambassador Reed. Execute Protocol 7. The response came immediately in a voice that carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "Protocol 7 confirmed. All assets are in position and awaiting your signal." Thane's crystalline form began resonating at frequencies that suggested panic. "What is Protocol 7? "The protocol we activate when diplomacy fails in someone threatens Earth," Reed replied. "Did you really think we would trust the future of our species to good intentions and alien promises?" The viewports suddenly filled with light as massive shapes decloaked throughout the local star system. Ships that dwarfed anything the aliens had seen before, bristling with weapons that had been built using principles learned during the trial of ascension. Humanity's real fleet had been watching and waiting. "Impossible," Buzzwing clicked with harmonics approaching hysteria. "Our sensors detected no human vessels beyond your diplomatic craft." Maya held up a device that looked like it belonged in a children's toy box. Stealth technology based on Vorthic crystal harmonics, modified using Creel hive mind networking principles, and powered by luminar energy manipulation techniques. "We learned a lot during your trials." The ship's tactical display activated, showing the true scope of humanity's preparation. Earth's actual military fleet had used the trial period to position vessels throughout the galaxy using FTL technology that the aliens had never detected. Every major Confederation world, every strategic resource, every critical infrastructure node was now within range of human weapons. "Your fleets approaching Earth will find that we've had months to prepare for this conversation," Kate said, consulting tactical data that made the alien observers realize how completely they had been outmaneuvered. "Humans are really good at learning from experience." Reed walked to the communication console and opened a channel to the Confederation fleet surrounding Earth. "Confederation vessels, this is Ambassador Reed speaking on behalf of the Terran Federation. You have 30 seconds to begin immediate withdrawal from human space." The response came in Thane's own voice, transmitted from the flagship of the invasion fleet. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender immediately or be destroyed with your world." 29 seconds, Reed replied calmly. Ben looked up from his journal with the expression of someone who had just solved a particularly interesting philosophical problem. "You know what's funny about your mistake? You designed your trials to test how we would respond to impossible challenges, but you never considered that humans might view your existence as an impossible challenge to overcome." 20 seconds, Reed announced. Maya began activating systems that filled the ship with the distinctive hum of weapons charging. The beautiful thing about reverse engineering alien technology is that we understand it better than you do now. We've had time to fix all the design flaws. 15 seconds. Kate studied her tactical displays with the satisfaction of someone whose plans were proceeding exactly as anticipated. Did you know that your crystalline technology becomes unstable when exposed to specific harmonic frequencies? Or that Creel hive mind networks can be disrupted by introducing chaotic variables? Fascinating engineering challenges. 10 seconds. Thane's form began resonating with frequencies of desperation. You cannot seriously intend to wage war against the entire Confederation. Reed's smile became absolutely predatory. We're not waging war against the Confederation. We're teaching the galaxy why threatening humanity is a fatal mistake. 5 seconds. The alien observers realized that they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had turned a threat assessment into a trap, and was about to demonstrate why humans were called the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Time's up? The light from human weapons firing simultaneously across dozens of star systems was visible even through the ship's filters. The Confederation's invasion fleet found themselves facing technology that exceeded their own capabilities. Tactics they couldn't counter, and an enemy that had spent months preparing for exactly this scenario. The war lasted 6 hours. When it ended, Reed opened a channel to what remained of the Confederation Council. This is Ambassador Reed of the Terran Federation, speaking to the Galactic Confederation. Humanity is willing to join a truly peaceful galactic community as equals. However, any future attempts at deception, intimidation, or threat assessment will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. He paused, letting his words sink in across a galaxy that was rapidly learning to fear a species they had dismissed as primitive. We told you during the trials that humans are bad at accepting limitations. What we didn't mention is that we're even worse at accepting threats. The galaxy is welcome to peaceful coexistence with humanity. But the next species that mistakes our cooperation for weakness will discover why challenging humans is always a fatal mistake. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate a new reality. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring species. They were the species that had turned a trial by fire into a demonstration of why fire was their natural element. Reed turned back to the three observers, who were processing the implications of their species' survival depending on human mercy. Now then, shall we discuss the real terms for galactic membership? The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human leadership had begun.